Picture this. It is a brisk autumn morning, and you are finally ready to make your electric car dream a reality. You have spent months researching, comparing features, and calculating how much you will save on fuel and maintenance. You can already imagine your brand new EV gleaming in your driveway, a quiet symbol of your commitment to the environment and to cutting-edge technology. But as you refresh the dealer's website, your heart sinks. The price has soared, seemingly overnight, by thousands of dollars. For millions of Americans, this is not a hypothetical scenario. It is an impending shockwave set to ripple across the nation as the federal tax credit for electric vehicles, a cornerstone of 21st-century automotive policy, is about to disappear far earlier than expected. This is not merely a story about car prices. It is about the direction of a trillion-dollar industry, the battle lines in the fight against climate change, and the future of personal mobility in the United States and beyond. The end of the electric vehicle tax credit marks a seismic turning point, with implications that will echo through the global economy, the job market, and family budgets for years to come. Let us rewind and see how we arrived at this pivotal moment. For more than 16 years, the United States government has provided a powerful incentive to go electric. A federal tax credit worth up to $7,500 for a new electric vehicle and up to $4,000 for a qualifying used one. This program, launched in the year 2008, was born out of a perfect storm: rising anxiety over climate change, volatile oil prices, and mounting pressure for American industry to innovate in the face of global competition. But it was the Inflation Reduction Act, signed in the year 2022, that truly supercharged this incentive. The act not only expanded the credit's reach, but rewrote its rules. To qualify, vehicles had to be assembled in North America, and their batteries had to contain a significant proportion of domestically sourced materials. For the first time, the promise of cleaner, greener mobility became accessible to millions more Americans. Suddenly, driving electric was not the exclusive domain of wealthy early adopters or eco-warriors. It became a realistic option for families across the country, from bustling cities to rural heartlands. The impact was immediate and profound. Take the Chevrolet Equinox EV, for example. With a starting price just above $33,000 and a battery range of over 300 miles, it became a symbol of the new electric mainstream. After accounting for the full federal tax credit and additional incentives, buyers could drive one home for just over $24,000, a figure that undercut many traditional gas-powered SUVs. This was not only a win for the environment, but a practical, dollars and cents decision for households. The market responded with enthusiasm. In the second quarter of the year, General Motors sold more than 17,000 Equinox EVs, making it the company's best-selling electric vehicle by far. To put that in perspective, the entire Cadillac electric lineup, including the Lyriq, Optiq, Vistique, and Escalade IQ, sold just under 12,000 units combined during the same period. The numbers speak for themselves. Electric vehicles were no longer a curiosity, but a force to be reckoned with. Mary Barra, Chief Executive Officer of General Motors, summarized this sea change in a single sentence: "The $7,500 tax credit is driving demand. Without that, that'll slow." And her assessment is echoed across the industry. Analysts, engineers, and executives alike credit the federal incentive as a primary engine behind the transformation of American car culture. Since the expansion of the credit, electric vehicle sales have surged to record highs, with nearly 1 in every 10 new cars sold in the United States in 2023 being electric. Less than a decade ago, electric vehicles barely accounted for 1 in 100 new sales. But now, this era of growth faces a dramatic plot twist. President Trump's recently enacted One Big Beautiful Bill has pulled the rug out from under the electric vehicle market. The federal clean vehicle tax credit, which many expected to run through the end of 2032, will now vanish at the end of September in 2025. That is a full 7 years ahead of schedule. A breathtaking acceleration that has thrown automakers, policymakers, and consumers into a maelstrom of uncertainty. So what does this mean for drivers, the auto industry, and the broader American economy? The consequences are immediate and far-reaching. For consumers, the math changes overnight. The average price of a new electric vehicle in May of 2025 is projected to be around $58,000. About $10,000 higher than the average new gas-powered car. With the federal tax credit gone, the cost gap widens, making electric vehicles suddenly out of reach for many middle-income families. Let us return to our earlier example. If the Chevrolet Equinox EV loses its federal incentive, its price jumps from just over $24,000 back up to more than $34,000. That $10,000 swing is not trivial. It can be the deciding factor for families weighing the switch to electric. The loss of the credit could push millions to stick with internal combustion engines, slowing the pace of decarbonization and undermining national climate goals. The pain does not stop at the consumer's wallet. Automakers, who have spent billions retooling assembly lines, developing advanced battery technologies, and building new supply chains, now face a potential collapse in demand. A recent industry study forecasts that electric vehicle registrations could plunge by as much as 27% in the months following the credit's expiration. This is not a gentle deceleration. It is a cliff edge. Dealers, suppliers, and thousands of workers invested in the electric transition stand to lose out. The story does not end there. Recent history offers a cautionary tale. When certain electric models lost their eligibility for tax credits because of new rules about domestic battery sourcing or assembly, automakers scrambled to adapt. Some slashed prices, others rushed to shift production to the United States, absorbing higher costs in hopes of regaining eligibility. In several cases, these moves resulted in financial losses and operational headaches, underscoring how dependent the market has become on government incentives. Relocating manufacturing is a costly and risky endeavor, especially in an industry where margins are already razor-thin. But let us widen our lens. The electric vehicle revolution is a global story. Across Europe, aggressive government policies have propelled countries like Norway to the forefront. In Norway, tax breaks and toll exemptions have pushed electric vehicles to account for more than 3/4 of all new car sales. In Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, a mix of rebates, low-emission zones, and charging infrastructure investments have made electric driving mainstream. Meanwhile, China, the world's largest auto market, has implemented a labyrinth of subsidies, manufacturing incentives, and government mandates to dominate global battery and electric vehicle production. The United States, with its federal tax credit, was finally mounting a credible challenge in this race. The sudden withdrawal of support raises a critical question. Will the U.S. keep pace or surrender its leadership in the mobility technologies of the future? There are signs of both opportunity and peril. Some automakers have proven nimble. When their models lost eligibility, they responded with lower price trims, more affordable leasing offers, and creative financing. Tesla, the perennial disruptor, has frequently adjusted prices, offered special deals, and pushed the boundaries of online sales to keep its vehicles attractive. Ford, facing fierce competition from both American and international rivals, has doubled down on battery innovation and has begun piloting subscription-based vehicle access. The industry is in a race not just to sell cars, but to invent new ways of owning, using, and upgrading vehicles. Yet the challenges are formidable. The United States charging infrastructure, while expanding, remains patchy and unreliable in many regions. For many would-be buyers, the fear of running out of charge or not finding a fast charger when needed remains a powerful deterrent. The end of federal incentives could slow the rollout of new charging stations, creating a vicious cycle. Fewer electric vehicles on the road means less demand for chargers, which in turn means less investment in infrastructure. Some state governments are stepping up. California, New York, and Colorado, for example, offer robust rebates, carpool lane access, and zero-emission vehicle mandates. But policies vary widely, and the patchwork of state-level incentives may not be enough to sustain momentum nationwide. Legal and political battles are brewing. The domestic sourcing and assembly requirements introduced by the Inflation Reduction Act were meant to create American jobs and protect supply chains. However, they have also led to disputes with trading partners in Europe and Asia, as well as confusion among consumers over which vehicles actually qualify for incentives. Automakers are lobbying hard for alternative supports, whether expanded research grants, streamlined permitting for battery plants, or direct public investment in charging networks. The coming years will test the creativity and resolve of policymakers as the tax credit vanishes from the toolkit. For consumers, the stakes are personal. If you are considering buying an electric vehicle, the next year represents a unique window of opportunity. As the deadline for the federal tax credit approaches, expect a flurry of activity at dealerships. Manufacturers will likely roll out a barrage of promotions, enhanced trade-in deals, 0% financing, loyalty bonuses, and possibly covering part of the lost incentive themselves to keep sales moving. Industry insiders predict a short-term sales surge as buyers rush to secure the last of the federal credits, a pattern seen in other markets when similar incentives have expired. For the savvy shopper, timing will be everything. Acting too late could mean missing out on thousands in savings. Acting early and being flexible about model and trim could lock in maximum value. But there is more to the electric vehicle equation than just the sticker price. Electric cars typically offer lower fueling and maintenance costs over their lifetime compared to gas-powered vehicles. Many states and utilities offer additional rebates or incentives, and some cities provide perks like free parking, access to carpool lanes, or discounted tolls. As battery technology improves, new models are offering longer ranges, faster charging, and better reliability. Watch for breakthroughs in battery chemistry. Solid-state and lithium iron phosphate batteries promise to cut costs, extend range, and reduce dependence on rare minerals. Subscription and leasing models are also gaining traction, offering consumers the flexibility to upgrade their vehicles more frequently as technology advances. This can be a smart hedge against rapid innovation, ensuring drivers are not locked into yesterday's tech. Community-based initiatives are another rising trend. Local governments and advocacy groups are organizing bulk purchase programs, neighborhood charging installations, and educational campaigns to help demystify the transition to electric mobility. If you are not planning to buy a car soon, your influence still matters. The coming years will see fierce debates at every level of government about the best way to support clean transportation. Should the focus shift to direct investment in charging infrastructure? Support for battery recycling and end-of-life management, expansion of research grants for next-generation mobility solutions? Public pressure will shape whether the United States maintains momentum or falls behind global rivals. Your voice, your vote, and your engagement with local officials can make a real difference. Think about the bigger picture. The transportation sector is the largest single source of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. Electrifying cars and trucks is a linchpin of any credible climate plan. While the end of the federal tax credit is a blow, it need not spell the end of the electric revolution. History teaches us that adversity often sparks innovation. When oil prices spiked in the 1970s, automakers responded with lighter, more efficient cars and the birth of the compact sedan. The sudden withdrawal of government support might catalyze a new wave of cost-cutting, supply chain innovation, and competitive pressure, paving the way for truly affordable electric vehicles in the years ahead. Consider the potential for technological breakthroughs. The next leap in battery technology could slash the cost of electric vehicles, making them the default choice for millions more drivers. New manufacturing methods, such as gigacasting, modular assembly, and advanced robotics, could reduce production times and costs, shifting the calculus for both automakers and buyers. The integration of cars into the smart grid, vehicle-to-home power sharing, and over-the-air software updates are turning vehicles into digital platforms. Companies from Silicon Valley to Detroit, Shanghai to Berlin are pouring billions into this global race. The next 2 years will be a crucible for resilience, ingenuity, and leadership. Do not overlook how consumer preferences are evolving. Younger generations are far more likely to consider electric cars, not just for environmental reasons, but for the promise of new technology, connectivity, and lower long-term ownership costs. Surveys show that Generation Z and Millennials rate sustainability and digital features as major priorities when choosing a vehicle. As more affordable models come to market and the used electric vehicle market matures, the pool of potential buyers will only grow. Meanwhile, the resale value of electric cars is gradually improving as battery durability and public perception advance. The end of the federal tax credit also raises important equity questions. For lower-income households and communities of color, the upfront cost of an electric vehicle remains a significant barrier. Without targeted incentives, there is a risk that the benefits of cleaner transportation, lower emissions, quieter streets, improved public health will be unevenly distributed. Policymakers must consider new tools to ensure that the electric transition serves all Americans, not just the affluent or the tech-savvy. Globally, the expiration of the U.S. federal incentive may embolden rivals. China is investing heavily in battery recycling, rural charging networks, and next-generation battery chemistries, aiming to dominate the entire electric vehicle supply chain. The European Union is ramping up tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles to protect its domestic industry, while simultaneously pouring funds into green technology research. The coming years will see a fierce contest for technological and economic leadership, with the stakes reaching far beyond car dealerships. Legal battles are already brewing. The Inflation Reduction Act's mandates for domestic content have triggered trade disputes under World Trade Organization rules and are being challenged by automakers who argue for more flexibility. Consumer advocacy groups are demanding clearer information and more straightforward eligibility criteria for incentives. Some environmental organizations are calling for a shift towards supporting public transit, cycling, and walking, beyond electric cars alone. In this turbulent environment, what should you do? If you are considering an electric vehicle, now is the time to research models, confirm eligibility for incentives, and talk to dealers about upcoming promotions. Pay attention to state and local rebates, utility programs, and infrastructure investments in your area. If you are not ready to buy, consider joining community advocacy efforts or educational campaigns. Your engagement can help shape the next generation of policy. For those watching from the sidelines, remember, the future of mobility is being written right now in boardrooms, legislative chambers, and family kitchens alike. The disappearance of the federal tax credit may feel like the end of an era, but it could also be the spark that ignites a new wave of innovation. As history shows, when one door closes, others often open, sometimes in directions we never anticipated. The next 2 years will test the resolve of automakers, the adaptability of consumers, and the vision of policymakers. There may be setbacks, a temporary dip in sales, tough choices for manufacturers, and challenging decisions for families. But there is also the promise of something greater, a cleaner, smarter, and more resilient transportation system for the generations to come. So, as the countdown to the end of September in 2025 ticks on, the electric vehicle world is holding its collective breath. Will the loss of the federal tax credit stall the electric surge, or will it push the industry to innovate faster and smarter? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the race is far from over. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and be ready for the next seismic shift in technology and global economics, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. What about you? Are you planning to buy an electric vehicle before the deadline, or are you waiting to see how the market evolves? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below.